When news broke that D'Angelo, the reclusive genius who redefined soul music with a sound both timeless and raw, had reached the tragic end of his life, the world was left stunned, not just because of his death, but because of the haunting mystery surrounding his final days and the heartbreaking truth about the battles that had quietly consumed him for decades. D'Angelo, born Michael Eugene Archer, was more than just a singer. He was a revolution in human form, a man who resurrected soul in the 1990s with Brown Sugar and Voodoo, albums that blended gospel, funk, and sensuality into something the world hadn't heard since Marvin Gaye or Prince. His voice was velvet and thunder, his lyrics intimate yet spiritual, and his stage presence magnetic. But behind all that brilliance was a man who could never quite escape the shadows of pain, pressure, and perfectionism that fame forced upon him. Those closest to him had long known that his genius came at a devastating cost. From the very beginning, D'Angelo was haunted by his upbringing in Richmond, Virginia, the son of a Pentecostal minister and a deeply religious mother who filled his childhood with gospel music and moral restraint. From a young age, he was torn between two worlds, the sacred and the sensual, the church and the stage, God and the groove. That tension became the fuel for his art, but it also became the seed of his destruction. After Brown Sugar made him a star in 1995, the industry labeled him the savior of soul, a title that terrified him. He was barely in his 20s and already burdened with the expectation of reviving an entire genre. Then came Voodoo in 2000, a masterpiece recorded in long, chaotic, drug-fueled jam sessions that blurred the line between creation and madness. When the music video for Untitled, How Does It Feel dropped, showing D'Angelo's chiseled, shirtless body in intimate close-up, it turned him overnight from musical innovator to sex symbol. Women adored him, but D'Angelo himself began to unravel. He later said that video destroyed his peace because instead of people listening to his voice, they were staring at his body. He hated the way he became an object of fantasy when all he wanted was to be seen as an artist. The pressure to live up to that image, to stay perfect, broke him. He stopped performing, gained weight, spiraled into alcohol and drug abuse, and vanished from the public eye for years. During that exile, rumors ran wild that he had lost his mind, that he was living as a recluse in Virginia, that he had been in and out of jail. Few knew the real truth. D'Angelo was fighting a war within himself, one that mixed addiction, guilt, and fear of his own greatness. He had become paralyzed by the expectations he had created. In rare interviews, he hinted that he felt trapped by his gift, saying, "The higher you climb, the closer you get to the sun, and that heat can burn you alive." Those who saw him during those years described a man who alternated between bursts of creativity and terrifying darkness. He would lock himself in studios for days, recording entire albums worth of music he never released, convinced none of it was good enough. Friends like Questlove and US Love's Soulquarians Collective tried to pull him back, but D'Angelo's demons ran too deep. He suffered multiple car accidents, including one in 2005 that nearly killed him and left his face scarred, a physical reminder of how far he had fallen. After that, he withdrew even further, shutting out most of the world. Then, in 2014, like a phoenix rising from ashes, he shocked everyone with Black Messiah, a dark, politically charged album that arrived without warning and reminded listeners of his unmatched genius. Critics hailed it as a comeback for the ages, but those who knew him saw it as something else, a man's final cry for redemption. The lyrics were raw, haunted by themes of death, resurrection, and struggle. Even as he performed again and seemed poised for a full return, close friends later revealed that D'Angelo was fragile, emotionally and physically exhausted. He was sober for stretches of time but often relapsed, caught between wanting to live for his music and wanting to escape the pain it brought. In his last interviews, there were hints of resignation. He spoke about spirituality, about how he felt the world was too loud for real soul music, about how fame had poisoned what he loved most. One of his last recorded statements to a friend reported that they don't love the soul. In the months leading to his death, D'Angelo isolated himself again in his Virginia home. Neighbors noticed he rarely left his property, and when he did, he looked thin and unwell. Friends tried to reach out, but his phone often went unanswered. According to insiders, he had been struggling with health complications made worse by years of substance abuse and depression. He was said to be recording new material, his final confession as he called it, music that those close to him are now fighting to preserve and release posthumously. The shocking secret behind his death wasn't a scandal, but something even more tragic. D'Angelo died from the same relentless perfectionism and spiritual conflict that had both made and destroyed him. His body finally gave out, but the real cause was exhaustion, mental, emotional, and creative burnout that no amount of talent could save him from. He had spent decades chasing purity in his art, trying to reconcile the divine with the human, and in doing so he tore himself apart. Those who found him said his home was filled with unfinished notebooks, sketches of lyrics about forgiveness, and dozens of unreleased songs on hard drives labeled Resurrection, Eden, and Judgment. Some of those who listened said the music was transcendent, his voice aged, cracked, but full of grace, like a man standing between heaven and earth, ready to cross over. When the world learned of his passing, tributes poured in from across the music industry. Artists from Maxwell to Erykah Badu to Prince's protégé spoke of how he changed the sound of soul forever. Questlove wrote that D'Angelo wasn't just the sound of a generation, he was the truth we couldn't handle. And in a haunting twist, one of D'Angelo's last text messages, later shared by a friend, simply read, "Tell them I'm free now." It was the final word of a man who had spent his whole life trapped between the light of his gift and the darkness it created. His death wasn't just a loss of a musician, it was the silencing of one of the last pure souls in modern music. The secret behind D'Angelo's tragic end is that he didn't die of fame, or drugs, or heartbreak. He died from carrying too much soul in a world that no longer knew what to do with it. His story is both cautionary and sacred, a reminder that behind every genius lies a fragile human spirit, and that sometimes the brightest stars burn out not from weakness, but from the unbearable weight of their own brilliance. Thanks for watching.